All right.
Hey, what's up? My name is Kari. I'm here with Gabriel. We're just here to talk to you about video games and our musings on the state of the industry from time to time. Uh, Gabe, if you will.
Oh yeah, what's up, everyone? My name is Gabriel. You call me Gabe, whatever. And yeah, we're just two gamers who, are really passionate about the video game industry, and we just want to start this podcast. Just to talk about it. Give our views on it, and possibly give people, um, some games to look into in the future. Some games that may be fun to play uh, in the sea of all these shovelware games, that are out there now. We just want to point out some that are actually fun, interesting, or at least to our liking.
Right, right. We have some pretty high standards over here, so not everybody's gonna pass the bar for sure, but we'll definitely let you know. Um, just a quick start it off. I'm Kari. I stay out in North Carolina. I play a little. I play a little bit of everything. Even a little bit of Madden from time to time. Not very good at it. Not really my cup of tea most days, but I still play it. Um, Other than that, I play the usuals. I play some first-person shooters, some RPGs, going back to the days of Chrono Trigger. Fast forward all the way up to like Mass Effect Andromedon and things like that. So it's all good over here. And Gabe, what about you? How
You
you feeling?
you can't go wrong with Chrono Trigger. I feel like me personally, that's the number one RPG to have ever been created. But mostly for me, I'm currently on the mobile scene more than anything else. One particular game that has caught my attention for the last maybe 2.5 years is WWE Supercard, and another one is Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. Um, but as far as consoles and PCs are concerned, I play just about everything except sports. On occasion, I do play NBA 2K, but for the most part, if it's not a horror game, if it's not an FPS game, I'm mostly playing an RPG or a mobile game. And I guess you can credit my little brother for that because he kind of pushed mobile on us like when it first started, getting big in the gaming industry with Windows Phone and whatnot. He was pushing mobile. He was always constantly saying mobile is gonna be the next like big genre of gaming. And as you can see, I guess it's evident, with sales and things now, how much money companies are making like on the mobile scene. But for me, um, as Kari said, we are like heavily critical on the games that we will discuss on this podcast. But for me, I'm like probably what you could consider overly critical because I feel like the golden years of gaming were, back in the 80s and early 90s with SNES up to maybe PS1 era. PS2 was good as well, I guess, but um, with I feel like I don't know about you, Kari, but I feel
Yeah.
like with the introduction of DLC, like gaming content has been watered down quite a bit.
Okay,
So
I can see that. I can see that definitely. I'm kind of on the other side of the fence. I'm a big fan of like progress and moving forward, and games trying to do that, whether large or small, AAA or indie companies, are just trying to push the genre forward however they can. Occasionally, we'll get some rehash, but um, like you said, on some games we do agree that it's just not pushing the genre forward. But I do believe that we're still going forward in one way or another. Um, Before our first topic, I know that we decided to discuss the state of games in particular. Um, have games gotten any better between now and the past, between the NES and the PS1 section of time? So roughly, what is it, like 1985 to I guess 1999 would
Yeah,
be a good number.
yeah,
Yeah. So the games up until that point were like kind of cool before it started going downhill, giving us a lot of shovelware, and then finally where we're at the point now where we have a bunch of DLC and things like that that seem to kind of water down the experience for gamers.
yeah.
So Gabe, you want to go first? You want me to go in on it?
I personally feel like the era of SNES all the way up to PS maybe three. No, not three. I'm sorry. Maybe PS2 was probably the best era of gaming that you're gonna get right now, unless things change. And I feel that way because back then you couldn't. My one of my points is back then you couldn't, just say if you had a mistake in a game or a bug in a game or a glitch in a game, you had to. There was no internet way to send like a downloadable patch to fix it. So companies had to make sure the game was as good as it can get when it's first being sold. So you had games with a lot of good content, games with a lot of story, and most of all, more importantly, you had games with complete stories. Like now, you have, for example, the latest Hitman that was an episodic series. So it's like they sold you what was it, 10, $15 uh, chunks of like 2 hour gameplay for 5 episodes. And another good example is the Telltale series, especially the one they're most famous for, Walking Dead. Uh, they have like episodes, you know, and it's like, oh, we're gonna come out with this episode here for $20, and then this episode here for $20. And I feel like in today's age, gaming developers are pretty much saying, we just want to meet this deadline for right now. If something's messed up, we'll send a downloadable patch to fix it. But for the most part, let's just get it out there by the deadline. Whereas back then, like in the days of Chrono Trigger, if you notice, like the Chrono Trigger can be a long game if you want to like level up, to the max. But for the most part, Chrono Trigger is like well put together. Same with games like Final Fantasy 3/6, Final Fantasy 7. Even games like Final Fantasy 10. They had a full out storyline. There was no um, spending an extra $5 or $10 to get a different ending or the actual ending to the game. And most importantly, there was no microtransactions um, set up in the games. And I feel like in today's game, in this generation of gaming era, game devs are more focused on how much money they can get as opposed to bringing about a fun and enjoyable experience. I feel like they're thinking, that's why you have so many other genres right now trying to jump on whatever's hot. For example, you got PUBG that blew up. Then you had H1Z1 and recently Fortnite. All these battle royale games, and they're blowing up. They're making a lot of money. But now you have games like Call of Duty saying we're not going to do a single player this year. We're going to do a Call of Duty battle royale. You've got Battlefield saying that there's going to be a battle royale. And so it's like now everyone's trying to jump to wherever it's making money. Whereas back then you had Super Mario Brothers, but you also had, other genres that were trying to make it on their own as well.
Okay. Okay. I know at this point, I know we definitely disagree on this point. Not necessarily saying that any of the things he said I don't like agree with in terms of like microtransactions and things like that being bad, but in terms of just the state of games currently going forward, I definitely think that we're going forward. We definitely have some great titles out there to play. Uh, but it's no longer as easy as it used to be. Like one, two, three. You know, you go to like your favorite Nintendo Power section and be like, okay, this is these games are for me. I don't want to play these other like kind of weird looking games. But these other games that they have in here, I'm in there. Like the newest Super Mario Brothers back in the day used to be the game, used to be lit. When the Super Nintendo came out and they were announcing Super Mario Brothers, people stopped what they were doing to look up this game and try to get as much information as they can, whether it was from Nintendo Power or their friends or from wherever source they could get it from. I know in this day and age, with the advent of the internet in particular, there's just a lot of information that you just get bombarded with. And everybody is vying for your attention because we don't just have one game, we have like a bunch of games. So I can see how, in that regard, it feels like it's kind of like a watered down experience, especially if some of the better games are going to the approach of, you can buy this in episodic format. But I do still think there are a lot of developers out there making some great games that, for the most part, when they come out, they're done. They don't have like a lot of edits or anything like that. Um, Nintendo is a really good example of that because they typically don't have a whole lot of patches when they come out with their games as part of their quality control when it comes out. Um, that's just how Nintendo was for as long as I can remember. Um, they were just like, hey, no patches. The game comes out, it's done. They make sure that everything is as it is. So if you played Super Mario 3D World recently, you probably don't notice. You probably notice that there aren't much, if any, patches for it at all. It just came out, it's done. Is that fair? That's a fair assessment, right?
Yes, but
But it's a Nintendo game.
yeah, but look at Nintendo's latest. Nintendo has also been guilty of this whole cash grab mentality
Oh yes, for sure. They
because
definitely did that with
with
what is
Smash,
it? They definitely did that with the Snap.
with
They definitely did.
with
They've definitely done that with what is it? Super Mario that they have on the mobile.
yeah, yeah,
They definitely did it with
yeah,
that
yeah, because it's
for
like the
sure.
first 5 levels are free, and then the rest of
Yes.
the game is $10. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honestly I think that $10 for that you're obviously paying for the Mario name because
Yeah.
in my opinion all of the game is it's just Mario running forward, you tap to jump and whatnot. Now if you could actually move like you were in a new Super Mario Brothers game, like you can move left, right, up and down and whatnot, I could see it being $10 if there was more to it than that. But for just a runner in general, like I would rather play Subway Surfers
Yeah.
than that because
Of
there's a lot
course.
more content. It's free. It's not $10 or whatnot. But the if you look at Nintendo's latest edition of Super Smash Brothers, it's no longer exclusive to Nintendo. They've got, and I realize it hasn't been before.
Yeah.
They've been Solid Snake or whatnot, and Sonic and Pac Man and everything. But now you've got Shulk from one of the JRPGs. I forget the name.
Xenoblade
Yeah,
Chronicles.
yeah.
Yeah.
You got
Of
Shulk.
course.
Then you have what Bayonetta, Ryu from
Yep.
Street Fighter, or
Yeah.
Ryu as people want to correct. It's not Ryu, it's Ryu, but I call him Ryu, so whatever. But I mean, you have all these people in there now that are coming from Sony and from other games, like Capcom and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they're not free. Well, they're going to be free in this new Switch edition, but they weren't free, on the Wii U. They were $5 each, I believe, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
To a certain extent. To a certain extent, I'll be okay with that for several reasons. One, like you said, they're not Nintendo characters. They're literally characters from other franchises that they probably had to pay a significant amount of funds for sure, to actually put them in the game and make that happen. Number
Hmm.
one. Number two, it was something that the fans, not only the fans really appreciate it, but in some instances, the fans really wanted to be like, you know something? It would be cool if that character was in the game. I know it's not something that would happen, but it would be like a dream if it happened. You know what I'm saying? even if you had to buy it. For instance, you remember when they announced Cloud for the game?
Yeah.
You remember the hype that went around the game when they put Cloud in the game? Like, I didn't even believe it. Somebody was like, "Yo, they put Cloud in the game," and I'm like, "They did not put Cloud in the game. Like, how are they going to get the rights to this? Like, how are they going to make this happen? Like, this is not even a thing." I was like, "Man, bro, go sit down." And then they put the controller in my hand. They selected the character for me, and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. Nothing. Because it didn't even matter how well it was executed. It's just the fact that he was in the game, and I could be like Cloud versus Mario, or Cloud versus Sonic, or Cloud versus Sonic Snake, or Solid Snake, whatever. It was just exciting. You know what I'm saying?
But see,
And I was,
I can see Cloud versus maybe Snake, but th- does anyone out there really, really, truly want to see Cloud versus Mario in a fight? Like,
no, not really. I was just using that as an example because you can have, what is it, Cloud versus Roy, or Cloud versus Marth, or anything like that. And really, just to play it, just to play it. Like, you know what, this would be great. I want to
yeah,
play this. And then they put Lil Mac in the game, which was a free character in the game, if I'm not mistaken. And he was straight,
yeah. But
wasn't
see,
it?
isn't Little Mac a Nintendo character though? Like,
Yeah, Lil Mac is a Nintendo character. He's not like one of the typicals, but it was just one of those things where it's like, this is nice. I really like this. I appreciate it. You know, especially when they put Ryu in the game because folks didn't think he could get in the game. It was something we didn't even know we wanted, and I appreciate that from companies when they can deliver something like that as part of an experience to a game.
but the question is, does he deserve to be in the game? Does he belong in the game?
No,
I don't
he,
think
abs-
Ryu
he absolutely does
belongs
not.
in a Smash game.
No, he does not. Ryu did not belong in the Smash game. Cloud did not belong in the Smash game. Bayonetta did not belong in the Smash game. Solid Snake did not belong in the Smash game. However, when they put Solid Snake in the game for the first time, were you not excited? Was that not something cool that you could be like, I like that?
Well, me personally, I was not uh, too thrilled about Cloud. Matter of fact, I wasn't too thrilled about him or Bayonetta for that matter. But in Snake, as far as Snake was concerned, um, I only saw question marks because I'm like, why is? To me, I feel like Nintendo has a vast amount of characters in Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong. Punch Out. You could do more than just Little Mac from Punch Out, but you have so many characters out there in the Mario universe alone that you could have put in Smash before going out and getting characters from other franchises. From as specifically from your competitors, pretty much. Um,
Yeah.
so why would you go pick Cloud and 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 I mean Cloud is it's arguable that he's not even the biggest name from Final Fantasy because
True.
I believe Sephiroth has a bigger name than Cloud, but I'm not like a Final Fantasy VII uh, super fan, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been anybody from any of the Final Fantasies, really. Um, One could see it as an attempt to like get fans back, but I know we're getting off track. Um, Ultimately, I feel like we still have those good experiences that are pushing the games forward. Like for some people, if you've ever played um, Naughty Dog series Uncharted was really good.
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you that.
When
Uncharted
it
was
came.
good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I said Uncharted was good. I'll give you that.
Didn't have a whole lot of bugs, and they always had like a theme for some type of graphic that they were trying to push. I remember for one game it was the way the water looked. For one game it was the way the snow looked, and it's just pushing those graphics, just pushing things forward that I really appreciated. So definitely think we have games that are definitely helping push it forward. But I feel like, just as Gabe said, there are a lot of games that are kind of holding us back, and they come out with a lot of bugs, a lot of problems when the game first launches that really you didn't have the time for, or you really couldn't risk a game coming out with that many bugs.
Yeah,
I know.
for me also it's not just bugs and glitches. Like
Yeah, it's
it's
content.
creativity in general. Like
Yeah.
especially for example, No Man's Sky. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah, things like No Man's Sky, or in particular for me, it's Final Fantasy 14. If you heard about that launch.
Yes, matter of fact, I remember telling you before how it was funny to me that at one point in time they had one person subscribed to their game, and when they actually found him and asked him why he was subscribed, he was saying he didn't know how to unsubscribe, and that's the only reason why he was still subscribed to it. But I do commend Square for taking the game down, reworking it, revamping it, bringing it back up, and blowing it up to the success that it is now.
Right.
But isn't it arguable to say? I mean, isn't it? Could you say that if they were making 14 back in the what I call the golden era, um, would they not have done this? Would they not have done it the right way the first time? Like
You
instead
talking
of
about? Do you mean like the golden age of MMOs, where basically like, yo, we see how everybody else is doing it. Why not just do it that way?
no, like I get I get like because I've beta tested quite a few MMOs, and I understand that a lot of them have horrible launches and whatnot. Not necessarily horrible, but I mean like they're full of glitches, bugs, problems, and all of that. But what I'm saying is the mindset of developers back then was let's put out a complete game now, and build from that in the future.
Yeah,
But
I
when
don't
you,
think. I was gonna say that I don't think that mindset in terms of developers has ever really changed. Um, it's just that nowadays that developers don't have that level of control over when the game comes out.
wow,
If you're talking about like a AAA company, because they may be like, look, the fans have been asking for it. This was our timeline for whatever happens, whether it's issues with the technology, issues with the content, issues just with the development process in general that may hinder the progress moving forward. And they're like, hey, we got it. This game has to come out, whether it's done or not. This is just what it is. We'll put in a patch. That decision is usually not up to the developers in that regard. Where it's
true,
like, oh, or more importantly, when it is, it's usually, like you said, a money grab. And at that point, it's like, okay, they couldn't manage the expectation of, okay, this is when it's done. This was our process. This is what we were supposed to do. They probably didn't manage that properly. And you can definitely see that with games that have problems like that when they first launch and then get fixed, like No Man's Sky or Final Fantasy 14.
yeah,
Um,
and that's true. I agree
but
with
they're
that
also,
100%.
and I know that sometimes you have really good games that also have a bunch of glitches that you may be like, you know what, I can overlook some of these problems because the game is really good. I can't. I just got to play it. My my favorite entry for this would be something like an Oblivion or a Skyrim, um, where they do have glitches and things that go wrong with the game. However, people really, really, really like the game a lot, and they're like, you know something, this I can deal with this. I'm just gonna play through it because it's just a really good game. And we have situations like that that happened in the past. Um, they weren't as frequent as they are now, for sure, but it definitely did happen. But as the gaming industry has matured and we have a lot more players in the game now, it's not just like the major first party um, game developers or first party console makers that make the games now. You have pretty much anybody in their basement with enough time and drive can sit down and make a game. So you may have something that may not be from a AAA studio that may still have a wonderful experience that you would pick up and play. Um, like Warframe, for instance, it's not from a huge AAA company with like hundreds of employees,
Hmm.
but it's a great game to sit down and play. You know?
But again, Warframe originally, like the current Warframe, yes, the current Warframe, in my opinion, best Destiny, um, the Division at best. A lot of these current AAA games, but it was not always that way. Like When it first came out, it didn't have the little hub world that you can pick up quests and go out and free roam and you know complete quests with major groups and whatnot. It didn't have all that in the beginning. Like when it first came out, uh, it was very similar to I can't remember the name of the game, but it was very similar to uh, it was instance based for the most part. So
Yep.
you just you sit in your ship, you pick a level, you go to it. If people are there, you automatically join in that group, or you can invite other people to your group. But it was mainly just go here, do this quest, then you go
Yeah.
back to your hub world or whatnot. I mean your ship. But it didn't have all of the content that it has now.
Of course. And I feel like, for me personally, I was okay with the instanced worlds for sure. Um, it was just a lot faster than having a bunch of people together playing a fast first-person shooter. I don't know if it was the technology or whatnot, but it was cool. I appreciated it, but I can understand your complaint for sure.
Yeah, but and the main basis for my argument is uh, downloadable content. Like I feel like that has, and I've spoken about this with family and friends who also are adamant gamers, and um, I feel like downloadable content is literally ruining uh, the gaming industry in my opinion because now that you have downloadable content, any deadline pretty much can be met. Like if you look at on Steam, you've got a section now for games that are that you can pretty much what is it? It's not pre-alpha. What do they call it when the game
Greenlit. When they're greenlit?
like when they're currently in development, but you can still pay money to play their current build, and pretty much you're paying them to test their game. I forget early access. That's what it's called. Early access. You got a section where you have games that are on early access, and it's like if the mentality that I feel like game developers should have now, and I get it. Like a lot of AAA game developers are bound by their sales teams, and when the marketing team says, we want a Call of Duty every November 11th, then you have no choice but to use the previous build and try to make one or two different changes on it and bring it out. And I don't have a problem with that. But when my problem comes in is in games like when you look at Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which I feel is
Yeah.
the best Call of Duty still out of any of the current Call of Duties or past Call of Duties. But when you look at that game, everybody likes that game. But what happened when Call of Duty was it Infinite Warfare came out? The one where they're out in space fighting with spaceships and stuff. When
I
that
didn't even.
game came out, they tacked Modern Warfare, like the a remake of Modern Warfare, onto that game. Like you couldn't get the game separately. The remake, you couldn't get it separately. You had to buy the latest Call of Duty first. That's something that's not, bound by uh, a deadline being met.
Right.
That's just them trying to, jump in on a cash grab
Yeah.
for a remake of the Modern Warfare game.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
when you look back into the golden days, like you didn't have. I mean, yes, you had people trying to make money. Of course, when you're making games, you're trying to make money also.
Right.
But the game, I feel like the games back then they were more complete. Um, there was no need for downloadable content because every bit of the story was told in the game when it was released.
I don't know about all that, but I do see your argument for sure. Have you ever watched Angry Video Game Nerd?
Yes, I watched quite a few videos.
So you would know that they came out with a lot of very terrible and trash games in the
Yes,
golden age of gaming for
yes.
sure that were nowhere near complete. If we're familiar with the I am air joke.
Oh man, what was that one? cartridge that was like what 55, 60 games in one,
Yep,
but it was just they were all horrendously terrible.
all horrendously terrible. If that ain't a crash grab, I don't know what is.
Yes, but and I get that. I get that.
Yeah, so there are definitely games like that in the past as well as in the future for sure. I just think personally right now, due to the fact that the game industry has a lot more players than it did back then, we're definitely going to see that a lot more going forward because it's a business. People want to make money, and any
Hmm.
way that they can trick folks into buying a terrible game, they will still do it for sure.
Like Goat Simulator, Rock Simulator. What was it? Grass Simulator.
For all
Like
intents and purposes, I feel like as odd as those games look, there seems to be a market for people who are buying these games,
yeah. So
which is weird. Which is weird personally to me because I look at these games and I'm like, okay, what are we doing here?
yeah,
Like, 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 what are we doing here? Like, why are we as gamers purchasing games like this? Because it will only incentivize people to make more of them, more of them.
yeah.
That's on the gamers. That has nothing to do with the people making the games. That has everything to do with the people buying them.
True. True.
And it's like, okay, at that point we can't control that. That would be like if everybody and their mother um bought what was the game? The New 52. Bought copies of the New 52. We would see more of those terrible games because that's what people pay for. And they were like, oh well, people seem to really like this. And then even the big game developers will take notice of it, and they're like, oh, it seems a lot of people are buying these really trash games. Let's make more games that are trash like those so we can cash in.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, okay, well, how do you get people to support the really good games and to just let the really bad games or the games that use DLC as a way to keep people coming back for an incomplete game? Like, how do we get people in that regard to not do that anymore? And the answer is you can't. We can't. You can't stop people saying, "Hey, take my money and buy this game." And so, in that regard, like you said, I can see where it's like, okay, there are a lot of games out here that aren't really deserving of folks' money or things like that. But number one, it's really up to those folks to really decide, okay, is this what I want to play? Do I want to see more games like this? And number two, it's up to the people who really like really good games that people have put in a lot of effort into that are complete upon delivery for us
Hmm.
to really go out and support them. Because if we don't really go out and support them and we just end up playing these free to play games that are initially free and then we have to go through these microtransactions, the more we support those games and the less we support the games that are complete, that are good, then we're going to start seeing more of them. And I think that's the direction that we're typically going in because, you know, people are people.
I'm trying to think of a game that was either talked about at E3 or is coming out like this year or has come out in the past like 6 months that has actually been complete and did not require, because if I recall correctly, even Final Fantasy 15 had an issue where the true ending was in downloadable content that you had to purchase. And in my opinion, 15 had graphics. It had good graphics. The the gameplay was good, but I feel like it was my fault. Like I was telling you before, I feel like it was my fault that I kind of got bored of it because I went out and did every little side quest, and
Hmm.
it was just I was literally almost 60 hours in and only on like chapter 5, and I just got so bored without seeing any of the story going forward that I kind of quit and haven't gotten back to it. But
Gotcha.
even that game, with as big as the world was in it,
Yeah.
it still had its ending locked in downloadable content, as well as that new Shadow of Mordor game.
Okay.
where you beat the majority of the game, but then there's this one final quest you have to do in order to get the true ending. And in order to beat it, you needed these super high level minions to help you out. But if you didn't grind throughout the whole game, you're gonna have to spend like another 40 or so hours grinding. From what I've been told,
Hmm.
40 or so hours grinding to either get them regularly, or you have to go in loot boxes and get specific ones to come out and that come out high level and whatnot. So you have to spend money, and I get it. Um, and you can, if you really like the game, you wouldn't mind grinding another 40, 50 hours to level up everyone in order to beat that last mission. But
Right.
everyone has come to the general consensus that you have to spend money on loot boxes to get the minions you need in order to beat that final level. But
Right.
in my opinion, the loot box option should not be there. Like,
Yeah, because at that point it becomes a pay to win instead of a play to win.
you know, and it's in most PC games. You got the console command, like in Skyrim. I openly admit I have two different save files in Skyrim. One is a game that I play legitimately, and the other is a game that I play using like invincibility, just so I can explore areas that I'm not able to get to yet.
Yeah.
But still, it's strictly only single player. Um, so the only experience I would be damaging or hurting is my own.
Right.
But when you have, like, for example, Call of Duty, I was watching the recent Call of Duty that came out, and I was watching someone play PvP, and I was looking
Hmm.
at the maps, and I recognized the maps from previous games. They just had a different aesthetic to it, but it was literally the same map from previous games. And it's like these people had to pay extra money to get these maps, but it's literally the same. You're paying extra money to get maps from games you already have and don't play anymore. Like, rather
Yeah.
than spend that money, you can just pull out the old game and just play PvP on it. But
That boils down to convenience, though.
I suppose, yeah,
If people
yeah.
will pay for convenience, they just will. If they could pay to get McDonald's delivered to their door as opposed to driving out to McDonald's and getting it, I know people who would do it.
I
They
can't
would.
say I'd be one of those people, but I can't say I'd be one of them.
You say that, but 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you realize that Uber Eats delivers McDonald's to your door, and you may just not feel like going out. You're like, you know something? It's 3 a.m. I don't feel like going out. Uber Eats says McDonald's is still open.
If it's 3 a.m. in the morning and I'm still up, there's only one of two things that has happened. Either something is wrong with me, like medically, or I'm playing a video game that I really just can't put down.
Right.
So they can have the 3 a.m. delivery.
That's what I'm
Uh,
saying. Convenience is too convenient sometimes. It really is.
yeah, yeah. And I guess that's what makes me angry. Well, not angry, but frustrated, I guess,
Yeah.
is that we could have, like, I hear people complain about Call of Duty just about every year. They complain about specific games, like, for example, Street Fighter Five. This year it was completely, supposedly, a freemium based system they're using now, where you can
Yeah.
get everything in game without having to spend no money. But the way they have the system set up, you either gonna spend money to get the characters now and the costumes now, or uh, you have to be, like, I won't say tournament level, because I watched some tournaments. There are a lot of garbage tournament players, but you have to be good at interpreting AI mentality in order to beat the levels required to get the fight money to get the stuff that you want.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, we'll give you, a season pass with 5 DLC characters for $20 or $30, or you can grind online hoping to win matches and get like what $50 a win, 50 fight bucks a win, and 100 fight bucks per level up just to spend. I mean, you need 100,000 to get a new character,
Yep.
but people still get the game. They still buy the costumes. They buy the season pass with the characters. And in my opinion, there are characters that should have been in the game, like Sagat. Sagat, you have to pay extra money to get him put in the game. You have to pay extra money to get Akuma, Blanca, Sakira. All these people that should have been in the game, you got to pay money to get them. And and the fact that people do,
Yeah.
it baffles me sometimes, I guess.
I can see why, for sure. But in terms of the opposite side of the DLC games, where you have to buy a lot of DLC for characters, um, looking at the list of games for E3 this year, um, games that come out this year where the game is pretty much done. Um, I'll start with Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Um, let's see.
That game looked pretty complete when it came out.
Yes, but it's still what it's got DLC characters that I feel should have been in the game. Like, it's coming off of the series Dragon Ball Hero, or not Hero, Dragon Ball Super. That
Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Yeah, it's coming off of that right at the end of that series. So
Okay,
now
I thought it
you're
was. Oh, go ahead.
now you've got DLC coming in of what Super Saiyan Blue, Goku and Vegeta, which if you pre-ordered, I believe if you pre-ordered, you would get them anyway.
Yep, that's the
Um,
power of pre-order.
so why is it that Zamasu and Vegito Blue and all these characters you have to pay extra money to get that should have been in the game? In my opinion, you can't have a Dragon Ball fighting game. Like, I mean, granted, let me retract that because I know somebody will say, "Oh well, look at the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. They had 12 or 13 characters." I'll say this: you can't have a Dragon Ball game in this day and age with uh, less than 55 characters, especially if you're gonna call it Dragon Ball Z. Like the amount of characters in Dragon Ball Z alone uh, can fill your roster up with at least 100 or so, 150 different characters.
For sure. But I feel like in this regard, characters that are essential to the plot, characters that are essential to the plot,
Hmm.
I feel like they did due diligence with.
Okay,
In terms of character.
let's look at their character roster. Dragon Ball Fighters character roster. Essential to the plot of Dragon. And that's another thing. Well, actually, I don't know if I should spoil their plot, but I feel like their plot has been done uh, way too many times. You know, the plot that they're using.
I mean, it's a kid's game at the end of the day. If we're talking about plot, like we're not really looking for a whole lot of plot. If you're talking about Dragon Ball Z, you just
I don't know. I don't know. Um, to to say it's a kids game.
I should say kids game, like kids storyline. It's shonen. At the end of the day,
Okay,
Dragon Ball Z is shonen.
okay. So you said they did well with the characters specific to the plot,
Yes.
like to the plot of the Dragon Ball Z series.
No, to the plot of the game.
Oh, to the plot of the game. Okay, okay.
Specific to the plot of the game.
I'm trying to figure out who the. I need to see the roster because from what I understand, yeah, like some of these people for example, Kid Buu. Now Frieza I can see because if Super Saiyan Blue is in the game, then that mean and Frieza can go Golden Frieza, so he's like up there at that level. But Cell, Captain Ginyu, Nappa, like Nappa defeating clones of Goku, of Super Saiyan Goku, of Ultimate Gohan, that doesn't make sense to me.
I could see that. I could totally see that. In that regard, he's kind of a free extra, if you will. I'm just thinking about characters who are essential to the plot of the game
And then when you think about it, the
as not part of DLC. As long as those ones are in there, I'm good.
you know,
Yeah.
and I've heard the argument that it takes time to make these characters because they have different combos and whatnot, different combos and skills,
Yeah.
and it's not like Chinkaichi 3 where all you do is press one. I mean, everybody has. It doesn't look the same, but essentially everyone has the same uh, button
Combos.
combination for combos. But
Yeah.
I mean, is that not the same with this system? Like everyone has a light, heavy, a light, medium, heavy. Everyone has a super they can do at the end of it. As a matter of fact, if I recall, everyone has an auto combo that you can do by just pressing light punch.
Okay, for sure.
So,
But I feel like with this game, number one, first, since it's a 2D fighter and they're really trying to work hard to keep all the characters differentiated, I feel like the way their combos play out will be they want to make sure that they're as unique as they possibly can be. It seems, which I'm okay with. Um, because when I've played other Dragon Ball Z games, it definitely felt like Saiyans had a very particular style of play.
mm,
It definitely felt they all felt like they were like a kind of like when you play Street Fighter and everybody who has the Ryu style of fighting has a very similar feel.
mm,
And I know Capcom has worked very hard as of late, or I should say throughout the whole series really, to differentiate the play styles of Ken and Ryu dramatically so that they don't play like the same character,
yeah.
but they still have the same style of fighting. So I feel like in this regard, they're trying to do the same thing, and they definitely have succeeded to do that for sure. But as with adding more characters, it's not as easy to. I could see how it's not as easy to do, especially if you don't want the new characters to feel like an existing character, which Dragon Ball games have been notorious for in the past.
You don't want them to feel like an existing character. What do you mean by that?
Let's say you have a roster of 55 characters and six of them all play like Goku,
Mm,
or six of them all play like Frieza, like, or six of them all play like Gohan, where it's like they're different skins. I mean, they're different characters that look different, but their combos still do the same thing. Like for instance, if I had a light hit combo, all their attacks would basically be from the top. They'd
mm,
all be they all look like jabs, or they all hit in the same spot. And even though they don't look like jabs, they're basically jabs. Like at that point, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? So I feel like in terms of like mixing it up and making it different, I can see how that can be a little more complicated than just, hey, let's bring this character along. Apart from the fact of dealing with all the art assets required to make said character. Although this process has been streamlined due to technology, of course, but it still takes time. Still, and it still, and importantly so, requires testing.
now, I know this may not count because all the characters in the game I'm about to mention could have been, cut from previous game titles. But are you familiar with Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
Yes, yes, I am. I'm very familiar with that game. It's one of the favorites.
Are you familiar with the amount of characters in this 2D fighting game?
I am. There are a lot.
Can you, other than, but not even Charlie and Gal, are necessarily the same. Like there are different properties even in Charlie and Gal.
Hmm.
But and I get that they all come from other 2D games, so you could have just taken the mechanics from there and just which is probably what they did. They probably just plugged them into one big game and just had them all
Hmm.
fighting. But if they're able to get this many unique characters in a 2D fighting game, how is it that Dragon Ball Fighters is not able to do the same? That's my only issue with the game, and the reason
Gotcha.
why I won't buy it until it's like $5 on a Steam sale is because there's only like what Yamcha, and seriously, Yamcha, why is why is he even in the game? First of all, he hasn't. I
Uh,
don't think he's had an important role in Dragon Ball Z.
Again, I
So
think he's just one of the extras. I feel like they definitely covered their bases with all the characters that were essential to the plot. Gave you a few extras, and then they have these other ones that they're throwing in at the very end.
yeah,
All
but
right, fine.
an extra would be someone like SSJ4 Saiyans, or a what if character like Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, or someone. You don't put Yamcha as an extra. Like
Tell that to the fans. Tell
I
that
would,
to the
I would,
Yamcha
I would
fans.
like to see the fans of Yamcha and ask them why they are a fan of Yamcha.
I
Because
mean,
what has he done in the entirety of Dragon Ball besides get shut down and friend zoned by Boma? What has he done to be legitimate in Dragon Ball Z?
dude, I don't know. I don't follow Yamcha like that. All I know is they also have a fan fiction that gained popularity where this, I guess some kid went back and got turned into Yamcha at one point, and then he just did his whole story differently, and then he ended up going to Namek instead of I think he ended up going to Namek with Krillin and Gohan as opposed to just staying behind, and then he got his powers awakened, and he got really strong, started doing some junk. But
Hmm.
again, like the fans, they like Yamcha, they want to see him in the game,
I,
and
I
I can't be like, oh, I gotta discredit the Yamcha fans because I'm like, they still love Dragon Ball Z, and that's what counts.
I feel like there's more fans of other characters than Yamcha. Like I feel
Of
like other
course.
characters have far more fans than the Yamcha fans, and I feel like Bandai Namco is doing those fans a greater disservice by putting Yamcha above their characters. Like you put Yamcha above Super Saiyan 4, Goku, Vegeta. You put him before Oob. I mean,
I'll put it to you like this, particularly with the Super Saiyan 4 characters. How will their style of play be different than the existing Goku?
well, for one, Super Saiyan 4 Goku is significantly slower, and that's been mentioned in GT. He's significantly slower, although he's stronger. So he may have slower attacks, but they do more damage. And of course, you've got Super Saiyan Blue Goku in there, and Super Saiyan Goku in there. And then you have, I believe they said they're going to come out with base forms of Goku and Vegeta as DLC. Now, all of Goku only has one particular move in the show, so well, he got two, I believe, Kamehameha and Dragon Fist, and of course the Spirit Bomb. The
The iconic Spirit Bomb.
Super Saiyan 4 Goku has a Dragon Fist of his own uh, that could be his ultimate, and his regular uh, ranged attack could be a Kamehameha wave, but he would just be significantly slower than Super Saiyan 2 or whichever version of Super Saiyan that Goku. I believe it's one SSJ1.
I guess in that regard, what makes like I see what you're saying, how it can have different combos specifically because he has a tail. And he can put his tail into those combos, and just the way he does his
Yeah.
existing combos could utilize his tail in some way, for sure.
So I mean,
However,
they have to
we
be, and that goes back to my point. Like the devs are not willing to be creative enough to put more people in here. I feel
I feel
like
like they done. I feel like for this time, with the creators, this is a game that nobody was expecting. Nobody was expecting a 2D Dragon Ball Z game, like, ever. You know what I'm saying?
but
They just weren't.
there's been 2D Dragon Ball fighting
Of
games
course.
like
Yeah, they
down
just
through
weren't
the
good.
years.
Yeah, they just weren't very good.
And this one could have been much better in my opinion because they got so much material to work with. Um, even with like I don't believe Frost is in the game, but Frost is just a knockoff. But uh, did they add Jiren? They should have had Jiren, Topo, uh, Khalifa. They can exclude Kale. Kale is a joke.
But I
Um,
guess in that regard, which is what I initially started with, they initially started with characters that were essential to the plot. As long as they got that good, I feel like all the other characters are extra. All the characters are extra, which is fine. It's fine that they included characters that were
no,
extra.
it's
That
not. It's not fine that they put Yamcha above Jiren, Topo, uh, any of the Universe Six Saiyans. They could have put Champa in the game.
they could have,
They could have put Whis in the game. They
could
could
have
have
done that
put.
too.
I mean, how would you put Yamcha above all of those people? I
I don't know. I felt like, again, they're extra. Like, as long as they had the characters that are essential to the plot in the game, anybody else after that is just extra, and I'm okay with that. And it doesn't matter who they picked. Could have been, like you said, it could have been Jiren, could have been Kale, Caulifla. It could have been their merged form. Could have been Topo. Could have been Frost. Could have been anybody,
mm,
any number of people. Could have been what's his name, Mr. Satan, if that's how people feel. But those are the people they chose. I was like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Cool.
well, I mean, I guess, but that's my main reason for not buying it right now is the character roster. I feel is pretty weak.
And
So
that's okay. Have you had a chance to play it though?
yeah, I played in two of the betas.
Okay, how was the controls? Were the controls tight?
Yeah, the controls were good. Um, uh, Still, I don't like the whole auto combo thing, but I get it. You want to bring new players into like the fighting game, environment, and
Yeah.
sometimes execution can be very difficult. So, just give you a little one button combo to do. And from what
Yeah.
I understand, I believe you can turn it off if you want to. So that is also a plus for the game. Story like the only the I have two issues with the game: the character roster and the single player story. But the single player story I can excuse because it's not the game is meant to be like fighting playing against other players online. I feel anyway because the story I feel was super rushed. It was terrible. It made no sense.
I mean, I'm
And
currently okay with all of that. I haven't played through the game yet. I had a chance to play a little bit of it. Controls I thought were pretty tight. But in terms of the storyline, in my opinion, it's rare that a fighting game has a really good storyline,
true, true.
especially Dragon Ball Z. So in
Um,
that so in that regard, I'm not like, oh, I'm expecting like a huge twist or like really good like plot from this game. Like,
yeah, yeah.
no, like the best storyline that I've seen in like a fighting game in a long time was when they came out with Mortal Kombat X or Mortal Kombat 10,
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention. Like,
and that was great. Like from
well,
start to finish, it was for a fighting game. It
mhm.
was a lot more than I was expecting from Mortal Kombat,
I
the
think
franchise.
I think Injustice One and Two also kind of did a good job on a single player story.
They did. They also did a very good job on their single player story for sure. I feel like Midway definitely stepped up a lot with those properties. I don't know what happened. in the earlier Mortal Kombat games, but I think they kicked it off with 9, and then they had 10, and then did the Injustice series. I was like, okay, I don't know who's doing this, but they need to just keep going in that direction because this is great. And this is where I'm
Yeah,
going to spend my dollars.
yeah. And I think that's another thing is probably um, like me now. I'm a way different person than I was, when I was like 18, 19. Because when I was, working in high school and whatnot, whenever the new game came out, I bought it without even uh, checking to
Without a,
see, if I even liked it, if I wanted it. If it was a new game with a name that I recognized, I would buy it and then see what it was worth. And back then we had Blockbuster Video, so I could rent it. If I wasn't sure, I'd rent it and see if I liked it. If I liked it, I'd buy it. But now it's like I have to know 100% what I'm getting before I put my money into it.
I
So
can see that. They have a lot of demos that you can have that you can play now, really more than ever. Lots of demos, lots of free to play sections. You can just
yeah,
pick it up, download it, whether it's a console or PC. Like, hey, got a free demo of game XYZ. So just download it, give it a little play, get a little taste, get your feet wet.
I still just don't see how anyone can just look at something like Goat Simulator and buy it. Like you
I mean,
would
I can
you,
totally see the appeal behind Goat Simulator for sure.
you would never have a Goat Simulator in the golden years of gaming, in my opinion. Like
I
it just
mean,
wouldn't exist because game devs, when you come to them with that idea, they would tell you, your position here is now getting us coffee because you're not, there yet.
it's fun. I mean, I can understand that sentiment for sure, but I feel like those same game devs would have said the same thing about Minecraft, and they would be super sad right now.
I don't think so. I don't
They,
think they would have said the same thing about Minecraft because essentially Minecraft is a sandbox exploring game where you can pretty much do whatever you want, like as far as building, mining, and crafting things.
right,
Like
but I feel like with the time that Minecraft came out, that type of, or I shouldn't say that type, that level of sandbox was just not something that was widely available because you could literally create and destroy everything you saw.
yeah, but see, there's a
Everything.
difference between that and let's play a game where you're a goat and you run around just doing whatever.
Yeah, you just run around
Like
smashing into things and destroying things. It's like Grand Theft Auto, except with a goat with no missions.
a goat, no missions, nothing else except just wandering a world aimlessly. Like
Yes.
that, in my opinion, that makes absolutely no sense. Like if they come to me and say, "Hey, let's make a game where you just set in a world, you can build a house, you cut down trees, get wood, you can mine for minerals and all this stuff, and you can build all kinds of things." They would probably say this sounds like a good idea, but we're not capable of doing it at this time. But if you came up to them and say, "I want to make a game where you're a goat and you just run around town, you can butt people, you can climb towers. Somehow this goat can climb water towers, and
Yeah, it's Mountain Goat.
it's like I I I don't see a dev saying, this is a great idea.
I mean, you never know. And some people just like, hey, you know what? Let's do it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's really how it boils down to sometimes. Like, sometimes you just want to try something different, do something that you wouldn't normally do, just to kind of stretch your creativeness as far as it can go. I feel like Goat Simulator kind of does that. Not saying, not giving it a rating, good, bad, or indifferent, but
yeah,
that's something.
and I get it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Like I feel like only games that try to be bad on purpose are ones that I would seriously, try and shut down or whatnot because um, I feel like people put a lot of time and effort into making whatever game they make, So uh, they should at least be given credit for actually going out there and doing it. It's just I don't understand why it would have to be a goat just running around doing nothing. Like when you look at
Yeah.
the what was that for the PS3 I believe called Tokyo Jungle, where you choose to be a specific animal in the jungle, and
Hmm.
you're in the city of Tokyo, and I mean you're in Tokyo, and all the humans are gone for some odd reason, and your job is pretty much just to live. You go to, have you ever played it before?
Nope, I've never played it before.
Well, basically you can be a dog, a cat, or you can be like a wild animal. And I believe you can unlock alligators, dinosaurs, and basically it's you have to pretty much live in a world without humans. Um, and you have to go out and you even have to the way you continue because eventually you'll die of old age.
Right.
So the only way to continue is to find a mate and have children. Well, not children, but well, I guess you can say children. And
Offspring.
yeah, they continue. So basically, they are your continue. So if you have six, you got six extra lives for when you die.
Hmm.
But there is a possibility if you get into a fight you can't win, that the attacker will kill you and your offspring. So that, in my opinion, that was a fun game. But
Okay.
a goat simulator, like I just, I guess I'll just chalk it up to I just don't understand the hype behind it.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't understand it. I respect it. I just don't understand it. It's
Yeah.
fun. And it's cool.
So what
All
else
right.
from E3 besides fighters that you feel is complete?
That complete. Whenever Devil May Cry 5 comes out, I'm sure it'll be complete. I've yet to play a Devil May Cry game that's not complete.
And what consoles were the previous ones on?
PS3, PS2.
So that was around the golden years, man, right?
It started then, and then it just kept going. So it started with the
Now
PS2.
we can't count the recent one with the new age Dante that's uh
Yeah, I mean, we can count that one too. I mean, for all intents and purposes,
no
it was complete.
no no.
Now, I'm not gonna say it was one of my favorites in the series.
You mean
I'm not gonna be like, oh, the latest one was like that was like the new joint. I ain't gonna say all that.
you mean the one
But
where they slap all the DMC fans in the face?
yep, that one. Yeah,
No,
I was one of those fans.
that one doesn't count. That one doesn't count.
But it was complete when it came out.
I disagree. I don't think it was complete.
I mean, it's not what I expected. It's not my favorite in the franchise for sure. There's a lot of things they could have done differently with the game. But regardless of how I feel about it, just like regardless of how I feel about 2, well, yeah, all DMC fans have a feeling about Devil May Cry 2. We all do. We all do. It was complete. It was complete when it came out. It had 2 discs. Not what I expected, but
It
it
was
was done.
it was
For all intents and purposes, it was done.
it was complete garbage. Yeah,
But it was
that's it.
complete. It wasn't partial. It didn't require DLC. It was complete.
All
It
right,
was.
fair enough. Fair enough. It was complete, man.
Let's see. What else they had at E3 that's probably complete when it comes out? Have you played a game called For Honor?
Yeah, and if you've seen the recent debacle with that, well, not recent, because I think it was like 20. I'm not sure when that happened, but it was not complete. I'll say that.
Really?
Yes. Hold on. Okay, it may have been complete, but I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding how you progress in it. and the
Yeah.
PvP part of it. I'm not sure about the single player. I played the betas, but I did not play them. I did not buy the game because I just had a bad feeling about it,
Okay,
and
I can see that.
I had a feeling that I just would not enjoy it. So, and it's weird because I like the betas that I played in, but I just felt like other players would just be too cheap for me to enjoy playing the game. So I just didn't buy it.
I can understand that completely. I can understand that completely. Where is that game?
But isn't it supposed to be? Was it supposed to be coming out with some kind of an update?
I haven't heard of any update. I just heard from some friends that it was pretty solid. So,
I mean, I won't. It had it had every. I'll give you that. Okay, it was complete. It was complete. It wasn't necessarily good in my opinion, but it was complete.
we still have some games out there that come out that are complete for sure.
But look at
Uh,
how few.
yeah, which goes back to my initial point, which was, there will always be a bunch of trash games that come out that are not complete. For sure. You have some games that are great that'll come out that are not complete. Just because the arena right now is a lot bigger than it was back in the early days of gaming, where you used to be able to name top 10. You could name all the developers, or not developers, you could name all the publishers that were publishing games back in the 90s,
Hmm.
where it was something you could look up and like, oh yeah, these are all the developers making games. You could probably list all of them off. Back when Capcom and Konami were a lot bigger than they are right now, for sure. Before Bethesda stepped in and Blizzard just exploded, and Naughty Dog was around. You had these publishers that were really like out here doing it. Um, so in that regard, we're gonna see a lot more games that are gonna come out. They may not be complete. You know, they may be just garbage.
But
But
my
that's just
thing is,
the nature of it.
why are they not complete? Now, back in the days of SNES, NES, and N64 and whatnot, they did not. They didn't have the capabilities to do a lot of stuff that they wanted to do.
Yeah,
The
they had to
tech,
scale back.
yeah, the tech wasn't there yet. But now the tech is here, and yet they're skimping on content on purpose just to make more money selling it in chunks of DLC later on.
Yep, that's
And
exactly what they're doing.
I feel like that is ruining the gaming community and the gaming experience as a whole. For example, look at it was I forgot the names, the specific names in general, but there were two Fire Emblem games that came out. I think it was on. I forgot which console they came out on, but you had to play. You had to. They each had two different sides of the story, but they were both $60. And then there was a third one that had like a final story on it, and it was like
Okay.
so basically, in order to get the full experience, you had to pay $120 at the minimum.
And all these games came out around the same time.
Yeah, they both came out together because it was like this is one side of the story, this game is the other side of the story. So if you want to experience the other side of it, you got to pay $60 and experience the other side of it. So
I guess in that regard, the question becomes: is it worth the cost of admission? Like, if each side of the story, if they had enough plot, enough meat in the story to warrant a $60 purchase, then I'd be like, all right, cool. You have $120 worth of game that you don't want to stick in a $60 game. I get it. And they're like, okay, we're going to split it up. $60 over here, $60 over here, because each game by itself has about 40 hours worth of main storyline content a piece. And not like and not like little slivers, like repeats of the existing story, but
Hmm.
totally separate storylines that happen to be related. If that's the case, I'm like, all right, cool, worth cost of admission. But if it's like a rehash of the same storyline, as I think you're insinuating, then I'm right there with you. As okay, this is a cash grab.
Now, granted, I can't say if it was a rehash or not because I did not buy or play either one specifically for that reason. I'm not going to pay $60 for one end of the story and then 60 for the other end. So I can't say whether or not it was worth it, but even still, that would be based on the opinion of the buyer. And so, you know, I don't know if that can be. I don't know if you can say whether or not it's worth it, but I mean, I'm sure Fire Emblem fans will buy it no matter what.
Of
But
course.
I just think that going back to the like, for example, GoldenEye. I don't know if you
Uh huh.
remember GoldenEye, but
Who doesn't remember GoldenEye?
with GoldenEye, granted it was local PvP only, but and who knows? I guess a good counter argument to that is um, had they had the ability of downloadable content on the N64, they probably would have done the same thing that Activision and them are doing with Call of Duty now
Of
back
course.
then.
Of
So I
course.
guess that's a I guess countering myself with that, thinking about it now. But had they had the capability back then, they probably would have been doing it sooner.
Yeah.
So
If they had DLC back then, I'm sure GoldenEye probably would have been up there with like Halo at this point. Because they'd be
yeah,
able to make those changes, people would pour more money into the franchise. They make more of them.
yep. Any other ones on the list?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, apart from indie games like Cuphead, because Cuphead is going to be complete when you get it. It just is. Cuphead. For a lot of people talk about Cuphead like, oh man, this game is so hard and things like that, and I get it. I totally understand. If platformer games are not your cup of tea, or you're not accustomed to playing those type of bullet hells, or even just platforming games, like it basically plays like Mega Man. So if you play a lot of Mega Man games, you're like, oh, I'm in there.
Hmm.
But for the Cuphead is the same way. But if you're not into that, but you're just allured by the art style and how it basically feels when you're playing it, I mean, hey, I'm like, just keep playing it. But yeah, Cuphead's gonna be complete. It's gonna have a new character in there, new storyline. I'm like, if you just throw in some bosses that are equally as hard as the last game, I'm in there.
Okay,
I'm
I
in.
I haven't played Cuphead, but I've watched someone play it, and it did look pretty interesting. To me, it didn't seem all that hard, but I know a lot of people
Likewise.
did say it was difficult, but it didn't seem all that hard to me.
Uh,
I
but yeah,
will I will tell you a game I'm interested in uh, from E3, which is pretty much the only game that kind of piqued my interest on the whole show, on the whole like thing, the event,
all right,
was this game called The Quiet Man. And only thing they showed was a trailer of this guy who apparently I don't think he can speak. I don't know if he can speak or if he can't hear or what. But he walks into this alley and these these gang members tell him he's in the wrong area, he's in the wrong part of the city. And he just looks at them and they get up and, go over to him I guess to see what he's about. And he beats them all down. And then it just says the quiet man. And they showed no gameplay whatsoever, but I'm interested in what that turns out to be. Um, and I don't know if it's like a rebound thing after my disappointment with two games that I was really looking forward to. In uh, Death Stranding or
Hmm.
Stranded. I don't know if it's Stranding or Stranded, whichever one. And
Death Stranding.
Stranding, okay. And the game by BioWare. Um, the new BioWare's Destiny counterpart. What's the name of that game? Uh, they showed it throughout the whole event.
Hmm.
It's Anthem. That's what it's called. Anthem.
Anthem. Yeah.
Um, Anthem to me seems just like you know another Destiny, and it's not that I'm not interested in Destiny, because Destiny was fun. The first one I played was okay, but uh, Anthem just seems to be Destiny with an actual story and better graphics. And hopefully I'm wrong, but I won't be buying it on launch. I'll just if I see that it's good, I'll pick it up. But the Quiet Man piqued my interest for some reason.
Okay, I can see that.
Now, been talking about the state of gaming for a while. I still feel like gaming has been deteriorating and still constantly deteriorating to the point where now uh, developers are clinging to whatever genre uh, is generating the most buzz.
Yeah, I
Like
can see that.
before, it was MOBA games, um, and then you had all these different MOBAs that came out, Master X Master, and there was even a DC mobile game, MOBA game that came out that did not. I don't think it actually got to launch. I don't think it made it out of beta. But when MOBA games were big, uh, everybody went out and had to make their own MOBA game, and then it turned to battle royale. Now everybody's trying to do their own battle royale because they see how big Fortnite and PUBG and H1Z1 are getting. So now everyone's flocking over to that. Even games like Call of Duty, who have always been just PvP arcade shooter, is now trying to put out an open world map with a battle royale setting, and I guess it's going to be FPS based or whatnot. But
Yeah.
um, I feel like back in the day, everyone had their own creativity, and they weren't afraid of failure. They weren't looking at their games like they weren't looking at the current market and saying, will my game succeed? They were just, let's make this game, put it out there, see what happens. But now it's like, if I make like for example Shenmue 3,
Hmm.
in my opinion Shenmue 1 and 2 were enough in themselves to merit a Shenmue 3. But this guy had to do what? He had to go do his own. What was it? It wasn't a Patreon. Was it a fun Kickstarter? Had to do his own Kickstarter,
Hmm.
and then he got Sony to back him. But that was back in like I think 2016, and there's still no word on the game. But it's like apparently he couldn't find anyone to back him since. I mean, before that. And it's like everyone now is saying, let's look at the current market, see what's blowing up, not what's good or what's like what's making money, but what's actually exploding. And then
Yeah.
let's all flock to that, and let's just turn all of our games into that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Resident Evil uh, battle royale. I mean, when you think about it, even Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear put out their own little survival game, and it's like everybody's trying to flock to whatever's big, whatever's jumping right now. And I don't think that franchises like for example Metal Gear and Resident Evil, I don't think that uh, these genres will survive. You know, with the current state of let's just jump on whatever's big and move with that and kick away everything that's not that interesting anymore. You
Yeah,
know.
I can see that. But I feel like with video games, it feels like every other form of art that has come before it in terms of like media, because I'm sure they had the same problems with books, with everybody hopping on the bandwagon. They still do. Um, Same problem that we have with music. When a particular form of music ended up getting hot, everybody wanted to do that style of music. And then you talk about movies, a particular style of movie that was really popular, everybody wants to do now, especially now with like Marvel and things like that, in terms of everybody wants to have their own connected universe because Marvel is doing it real well and everybody wants to cash in on that cash cow. So I feel like with video games, it's no different. We're definitely going to see a lot of copycats of things that are popular because people want to make money. Um, but I feel like just how, you have some standout films that are not part of the major films coming out or not exactly what's hot. You'll still
Hmm.
have those games that come out that are like cult classics or just great movies that you just don't expect to be great that come out and you're like, you know something? This is really good. Like we'll see those.
Yeah.
But again, just like the film industry is full of people trying to make movies, game industry is full of people who want to make games not only because, they love games, but also because now it's a viable form to, you know, make a living.
I understand that, and I'm completely okay with that. But my issue is if you want to jump on what's big, start from the ground up. You know, don't take Call of Duty that has been this way for like 6 or 7 years, and then there has been an FPS arcade versus shooter for 6 or so years now, and then switch it to a battle royale game. Like, start from scratch, use your creativity, and make your own battle royale game. Like, don't take, because I mean, in my opinion, if you take Call of Duty and you put a battle royale stamp on it, you're hoping that the name Call of Duty will push your battle royale version, above the rest. Because,
Yeah,
uh, in my opinion, if you want to do a battle royale game, that's fine. That's perfectly fine, and you're welcome to do it. If it succeeds, good. If it doesn't, you at least tried. But don't take, the franchises that are something completely different and just slap a battle royale in it. Like, to me that's not creative. That's just, in my opinion, that's just terrible.
yeah, yeah. I'm right there with you.
So,
So I guess that with that we can kind of wrap it up for
yeah.
this one. Um, we'll catch you next time. Is there anything else, Gabe?
Um, for those that are judging about, I'm pretty sure people will judge about WWE because we all know it's fake and whatnot. But if you play Supercards, you may just get hooked. So I'm just saying,
Just
WWE
saying, man.
Supercard and Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, Dragon Ball Z Legends, mobile games. They're free to play with ridiculously stupid microtransactions. So don't buy them, but you can still play the game for free. Um,
Yeah.
and that's all I have. That's all I got. And
All right.
I still maintain the golden years were SNES to PS1. Those years will never be beat, in my opinion.
Indeed, we can agree to disagree. With that, we out.
Yep. All right. See y'all later.